All right. Well, welcome to our continued video series, giving some lessons about yoga. So up to this point, we learned about kind of like the various paths of yoga, some of the different contemplative practices that come out of different paths, and really the history that developed and built up these paths. So in getting to learn about the history and the development, we learned that there was one crucial text that really has brought about our modern style of yoga, our modern systematization of yoga, and that is the Yoga Sutras. So the Yoga Sutras will be kind of the focus of today's lesson. They were, written around 100 CE. I mean, they had been practiced and developed and passed down orally for a long time, but the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali apparently was formally written down around 100 CE, the turn of the century. And whether Patanjali was one person or a variety of teachers compiling, we don't really know. But what we do know is that the teaching was very popularized, especially by Brahmacharya, who's often considered the father of modern day yoga, and he really blended the Yoga Sutras into his style of teaching that, of course, we know influenced teachers like B.K.S. Iyengar, Pattabhi Jois and the Ashtanga movements, Indra Devi, a famous and well-known female teacher, which was actually pretty rare at the time, as well as TKV Desikachar, who's come up with the Vinaya Yoga style. We look at Krishnamacharya as being one of the modern teachers who popularized, but not the only teacher. Really, a lot of teachers give their versions of the Yoga Sutras, because what the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali essentially is these short sutras, or it's often translated as strings, bare minimum saying, that then a teacher will hang their wisdom of beads on that string. So the idea was create a really short, simple lesson that people can remember. I mean, 100 CE, this is an illiterate time, but you create a really short saying of wisdom, and then the teacher can hang all their lessons on that with the student, and usually work with each sutra for a period of time. So today you'll be getting, I guess, Kevin's versions of the sutras interpretation, and the part that's really popular about the sutras, though it's not the big bulk. I mean, it's only 30 some of them, but about 30 some of them are where we get the 8 limbs of yoga. And the 8 limbs of yoga is what this book is, famously known for giving us. And so these 8 limbs are these 8 steps towards mastering the science of the mind. This is about the science of mastering our mind. And most people know the physical poses, the asanas. A lot of people know the pranayama, and something about meditation. But there's actually 2 steps before that are often forgotten and left out. And if we forget them out, really you're just practicing gymnastics. So the first 2 that we have that incorporates a deeper spiritual and ethical guidelines into our yoga practice are the yamas and the niyamas. So the yamas are what we'll try and cover in this video. There's 5 of them. They're often known as being the observations or things that have to do not only with ourselves but our relationship with others. But really, we know that our relationship with others has a lot to do with ourselves. But the yamas, they first start with kind of our external world and ways to navigate it in a way that will reduce the conflict in our mind. The first one's very obvious, and most people would agree that this is one of value, but it's Ahimsa. I am shortening the sutra down to the core, teaching the core word. But Ahimsa stands for nonviolence. And, at the core of nonviolence, we can think of, master teachers, saints, people like Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Jr. And these saints, these master teachers, they give us an image of what an impact nonviolence can have to gathering a movement of people in peace, and knowing that, we don't have to be violent or aggressive to achieve things, that we can achieve things with, peace, and knowing that, aggression, which really stems at its core is fear. Really at the core of nonviolence or ahimsa is knowing that we don't have to act out of fear. We can act out of the opposite of fear, of nonviolence or love. And, when you look at the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, and you look at the name of the text, Patanjali, or if you break it down, the word pat, which means to place, and Anjali, or as many of us know it, Anjali Mudra, our heart center, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali is really about, the union of wisdom within our own hearts, to place that in our hearts. So we can look to the qualities of heart, the qualities of love, of forgiveness, of compassion. And if we can get this, most of the other ones will come. What's often taught in the second one, so that was ahimsa, we'll go to the second one, Satya. Satya is often taught with ahimsa, and is the next stage, and Satya is known as truthfulness. So the reason ahimsa and Satya are often taught together is, well, what about in cases where telling the truth may cause harm to someone else? And, different teachers have different teachings about it. My teaching is that, we want to be truthful in a skillful way. If someone's not going to receive the message well, that is in part them, but we can develop the skills, the communication skills, so that in telling others the truth, that we can do so in a way to reduce the amount of harm it causes to them. Never speaking just for the sake of causing harm. Also recognizing if really the truth that we're telling someone is actually a truth we need to tell ourselves. And so if we want to be truth seekers, we have to first be truthful about ourselves, things that we do that are of harm to ourselves. And the more that we tell the truth, the more that our words and our affirmations will start to be spoken into reality. The more our speech will be aligned with what reality is. So they even say that this has a mystical element. Very similarly, ahimsa is said to have a mystical element of attracting more peace to us. So these are the first two. The third one is Asteya. And Asteya stands for non-stealing, which most people would probably agree is a good tenet. But it's so easy. We all were teenagers at some point. We may have shoplifted or, in our life currently have issues around stealing. But stealing doesn't have to be so overt. It can be taking small things, like some of your roommate's food, or, some will even go so far to say as if you were to pick a flower in nature. You didn't own that flower, but you will take it and you'll take it home. We could even believe that in a way, every breath we take, we don't own this breath. We can't buy it, but the earth does freely give it. And if that gift of breath is to give us life, maybe if we use our lives meaningfully, if we do good karma yoga, good work, maybe each breath we're taking isn't stealing, but we're using that wisely, that what we're receiving, we're giving. And so, part of non-stealing is knowing that, it is our responsibility to give. It is our responsibility to give what we take, to know that we can't take anything that's not earned in some way, that there is a cycle of giving and receiving. And when we really get that, we recognize that we don't have to steal, that the more that we give, without expectation of return, but the more that we give, the more that we shall inherit wealth. And if you look to lots of these great yogic masters who, for a phase of life, were wandering sadhus, where they'd given up all their material possessions, and didn't ask for anything, didn't need to take anything, they often were given so much to the point where they've built entire communities around themselves and made a whole lineage. So Asteya or non-stealing is knowing that we're already whole. There's nothing more we need to get to have value. And so this links up with the fourth and the fifth one. The fourth lesson is Brahmacharya, or as it's, if it's broken down, the Sanskrit, charya, which is, can stand for chariot or to carry or to walk, and Brahma, which if we remember from the Upanishads, is this greater consciousness of God that we're often trying to link our Atman with that Brahman, our individual soul with the greater soul. Brahmacharya means that we're walking as God or being carried as God. And often it's interpreted in a way that's of celibacy, or moderation is maybe a better way to put it. Celibacy can be a tricky thing, giving up sex. And it's taught that maybe there is a period in life after we've raised a family and such that celibacy is the right move. But in looking at lots of teachers who have, claimed their celibacy or taken a vow of Brahmacharya, we can see just time and time again power struggles and issues around sexuality between teacher and student that we have to call into question this ethical guideline. And when is it really right to be fully celibate and to really deny this impulse of creating more life? Or is it better to think about it in a way where we should be responsible with who our sexual partners are, to really build that with someone that we really want to build a family or a connection with? And maybe, just maybe, we could even look at it as, how not to be excessive in that. How we can look at where, if it's sex or binge watching TV, binge eating food, whatever it is, that when we're doing it in excess, it drains our energy. Maybe a better way of looking at brahmacharyas is what things in the world do we give ourselves to too much that end up draining our energy, so that we're not full to being able to do our spiritual quest. We're not full to be able to share wisdom with our students, that we don't have that radiant glow or energy or presence if we're drained. So I like to expand brahmacharya beyond just celibacy, to think about it in moderation. And what in your life do you need to be more moderate about that may, in doing it too much, cause you harm or depletion of your energy? So the last yama is aparigraha. And aparigraha is often interpreted as non-greed or non-hoarding. And really, though, when we look at non-greed or non-hoarding, often we can think about material things. Living in a capitalist system where the more things you have equals the more value you have, or the more happiness you have, isn't quite true. In fact, this saying is giving us the opposite. Aparigraha is saying that the more that we let go of the things that we're attached to, not just material items, but also roles we play, work roles that may no longer be serving us, a company that we don't buy its ethical guidelines or the way that it's treating us or its employees, our relationships, whether they're friendships, family, partners, if they're toxic and holding on to it is holding us back from moving forward. Aparigraha is really about being able to let go of these attachments, that in letting them go, we actually, it said, we learn the meaning of our life, the thing that we came here to let go of and to clear out. So aparigraha is one of the deepest and most difficult yamas. That's why it's given last. The lesson of letting go, most would say, is a difficult thing. So just know this. The lessons, Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha, they're meant to build on each other. So just start with one a week. See if there's ways that you can do less harm. If there's ways that you can live with greater truth. If you can find the ways that you don't need to steal and know that you have it all within. To find moderation in the things that you do excess that drain you. And most importantly, to be able to let go of the things that no longer serve you. These are our yamas, and once we've mastered these, we can then take it more inward to the niyamas, which will be our next lesson. So, hope you've enjoyed, hope you have a wonderful day, and so, thank you.